1, 0.
Welcome, one and all. It's time to get nerdy. Welcome to Monday Night Nerd. My name is Myers Corp Cosplay. I hope you are having a good week. I hope you're having a great start to your week. I had a great weekend. We have a lot to cover tonight, so we can't take too long because last week we had technical issues. We had some problems with the loading. We had problems with internet. I'm watching it now, and it looks like everything seems to be working good, so I am super happy about that. Yeah, it's been 2 weeks since we've done this. It's kind of, unfortunately, tech issues just come into play every once in a while. We've reset the router. We've reset the modem. I've made sure the extension's working. We should be going pretty good here. It'll never be 100% because I'm at one end of the house. The router and everything's at the other end of the house, and I can't run a wire through the entire house. But you know what? We're going to make it work. Tonight, we are going to talk about Comic-Cons because it is Comic-Con season. It is summer, which means you throw a rock and you can hit another Comic-Con. We're going to talk about the top 10 questions to ask before you go to a Comic-Con. I have my own questions, and I started to do a list, and then I thought, you know what? We have this thing called ChatGPT and Google Gemini and all those AI programs. Let's throw that question into those, and these are the 10 questions that came up that people want to know the answer to. And well, I've been doing cons for, this will be my 15th year at Fan Expo. We're going to talk about that in a second, but I've been doing 15 years worth of cons. I think I got an opinion and a couple ideas of what you need to know. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes, but first, let's talk about a good old Canadian band called Nickelback. I saw Nickelback live now 2 weeks ago at London Rock the Park. I was not originally expecting to go to see Nickelback. I've seen Nickelback many, many years ago, and it was a great show. Nothing against it. I've just kind of got to that age where the price of tickets is too much, and either I'm right against the barricade or I'm way in the back, and it's just that middle area I'm not a big fan of. But my wife was going, and some friends of ours were going, and she said, you should come. And I said, fine, I should go. It'll be a lot of fun. And I did, and it was a lot of fun. However, if you do remember, that was on the Wednesday 2 weeks ago when the tornado and storms came through from the States, and we did an entire concert in the mud. That was my first mud show, but it was really fun. We got there. The show started around 5 o'clock. We did not get there right at 5 o'clock. We kind of hung out in the dry area and in the car for a while. Tea Party was one of the opening bands. We unfortunately didn't get to see them. I would love to see the Tea Party. But we did get there for the opening act before Nickelback, which was the Glorious Sons. And I know of the Glorious Sons. I am of the age now that a lot of new music that everyone loves, I'm just not up to. I don't have the time. I don't have effort to get into it. So I know of the Glorious Sons, but you know what? They put on a hell of a show. I'm a fan of theirs after that concert. I'm glad I did see them. So we sat around, we watched them, and then it was time for the big bad boys of Nickelback to come out on stage. And man, they put on a show back in the day and killed it. They put on a show again this time and killed it. The hits were just coming. And one after another, after another, after another. Every song you could ever think of that they did. Burn to the Ground, How You Remind Me, Photographs, Someday. All their hits. They did top to bottom. But they also threw in one that I freaked out about because I'd always wanted to hear this song live, and I never got a chance to because I'm like, it's not a Nickelback song. It's a Chad song, and there's other people in it. I saw Nickelback play Hero from the Spider-Man soundtrack. And when I say I was screaming the lyrics at the top of my lungs like I was 15, I was screaming the lyrics like I was 15. That was one of the coolest experiences I have had at a concert in a long time because I had seen that it was on their set list, but I was like, I don't know. This isn't really their show. It's a festival. Maybe they won't play it. when they said they were doing a weird song and I jumped up and they started that song, oh, I lost it. It was so fun. And again, the mud was fun. It was crazy. I have motorcycle boots that I bought many, many years ago for costumes that I just said, I need to wear these because it's just going to be a mud show. And it was, to the point where when I was stepping in these boots, the mud was going over the top of the boots. So it was pretty gnarly. I spent the next day just cleaning everything. But a great, great show. You know what, depending on who's there next year, I might go back. The one thing I will say that kind of disappointed me about the show, when we got there, it was getting dark, and I don't drink alcohol. It's never really been a thing for me. But I had to line up for everybody to get beer tickets, to get beer. And I lined up and I said, I'm going to get a cup. I need these many beers and I need a water. And they said, sure. So give me the drink tickets. I go over, pick up the beer, and they give me a can of water. And by this time, it is pretty dark. I'm not really paying attention. I take the water. I'm drinking it throughout the show. I'm not totally drinking the whole thing because when I go to movies, I don't drink a lot of liquid because I will have to pee like a racehorse. So I hold on to the can. At the end of the show, I hop in the car. I look at the can. It's a 10th anniversary can for this show. And on the back of the can, it's got all the bands that ever played that show. And I'm like, that is such a cool thing. I wish I knew about that beforehand. I would have grabbed a second water and just kept it as a collector's can. But by the time I got it back to the car, I had crushed it a little bit with my hand just from having it in my hand. So I'm a little bummed I had to throw it out because I'm like, it is going to look like crap on a shelf. But that was pretty cool. I just wish I knew about it beforehand. But overall, I know Nickelback is getting a little more love than they used to. Honestly, I've been a fan of theirs forever. Their newer stuff is not really my thing, but you know what? They still have a billion different hits. They're killed it. They're amazing live. If you get a chance, go see them. Like, stop the hate. They're still a great band. They've always been a great band. It's just been this weird thing that people don't like them. Anyways, so that was Nickelback. Let's also talk, like I said earlier in the show, this is my 15th anniversary this year at Fan Expo. I've been going to Fan Expo for 15 years. I can't believe this. We are on episode 60-something of the podcast. And I started this podcast with the first episode talking about my first time going to Fan Expo. That was 15 years ago. It doesn't feel like 15 years, but 2009 was my first con. My buddy Tom, my buddy Gavin, we all went to Toronto and we met Bruce Campbell, which was the main reason we went. And it was that day that really changed me and made me want to do cons all the time and become a cosplayer and talk about cons and volunteer and all that stuff. I don't know if I mentioned it on the show, the original episode, but I'll mention it now. I just went as an attendee for the first con. My buddy Tom and Gavin, they volunteered there. They actually volunteered on the first con, and they got stuck at the Marvel booth working with like Dan DiDio and other Marvel staff and ate pizza with them and had a blast. So that also got in my head of like, maybe I should do volunteer stuff because some cool stuff happens. And I've got tons of stories since then. But yeah, 15 years of going to Toronto. I don't want to think about how much money I've spent going to cons over the past couple of years when it comes to gas and tickets and all that stuff. But yeah, it's pretty cool to say this will be my 15th anniversary. Hopefully it'll be as good as any other one. I think if I remember correctly, last year was not the best year. If I remember correctly, based on my memory of the end of the con, I remember talking to my wife and saying it wasn't the best, but it was still obviously Fan Expo, still fun. But yeah, I think this year we're going to have a blast. Hopefully Dread will be done by then. If not, I got backup stuff. And this thing, if you didn't see the pre-show, this weird machine, I think people call it a sewing machine, has now ended up on my table because I have some sewing to do, which I don't sew. So this is going to be interesting. I did a little bit last night. We're going to do a little more this week and get things rolling when it comes to my sewing career, when it comes to, as Crystal says in chat, mine, excuse me, as Crystal says in chat, mind exploding. And yes, I kind of am doing the same thing, that I can't believe I'm actually sewing. But yeah, it's going to be a fun year this year. And I think I've said this before on the podcast, and I want to say it again. In life, there are going to be moments where you are going to make a decision that you're not going to realize how much it's going to affect you until later on. And doing Fan Expo for the first time, that was one of those decisions for me. I remember trying to understand what it was when I first heard it's a 4-day convention and I'm going with my buddies, which is great, but or 3 days, sorry. It was a 3-day convention and I'm with my buddies, which is cool, but 3 days away from I don't know. It is the best decision I ever made, because now I've got cool people like you guys who I met through conventions. I cosplay like crazy. I go to cons all the time. I volunteer. If I didn't go to Fan Expo 15 years ago, none of this probably will be here. And it was just because I said yes. So whenever you get a choice of something like that, when you get a decision in life that is a yes or a no about doing something and maybe going somewhere, really think about that before you make a decision, because it could lead you down a path that you had no idea was going to happen. So I'm very thankful to say that I said yes to that. Let's jump into 2 more things. First one, Deadpool this week. I'm so excited. If you've seen my Instagram this week, I posted a picture of me. I'm going to be cosplaying Wolverine, Logan, at the cinema that I'm going to. It's not the premiere in Toronto. It is one in my local city. I wasn't thinking about it, but I'm going with my buddy Gavin and my buddy Dave and my buddy Sean. And I was talking to Gavin a couple weeks ago, and he asked if I was cosplaying. I said no. And he's like, you really should, because I have a Deadpool mask and I have pretty much a Logan cosplay. And he's like, well, you got the sideburns and stuff coming in. You might as well do it, because it'll be really fun. So I will be dressing up as Wolverine or Logan, and I will be there at my local cinema. I don't want to say which one, because, but it's in Hamilton. I'll be in Hamilton. You're going to bring my Deadpool 1 popcorn bucket. That's cool. I have I think I have the template. Yeah. I can't remember who it is on Instagram posted he had the template for the Dune one, the infamous Dune one. So I could 3D print my own version of that one. But yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to go. I can't wait to see what this movie is going to be about. Lastly, this is something that I mentioned to my buddy Dave and my buddy Sean, because I saw a poster and it really made me think that we are getting led down a weird path when it comes to the next Batman movie, The Batman, the sequel to it. So at the end of The Batman, we see, obviously, in the one jail cell, the Joker. And I think a lot of people remember The Dark Knight and they think that that's the same timeline sort of layout that they're going to do with these ones, where we had the Riddler, now we're going to have Joker. I saw this poster and it made me go, no. We're not going to go that way, and we shouldn't. If you remember at the end of The Batman, the entire city of Gotham is flooded. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't think about, of what that means. We're not going to have Joker as the villain. We're going to have Killer Croc as the villain. Because think about what it would be like to have a Batman movie with the suspense of Jaws. It would be unbelievable to think about Batman swooping down near the water, and somewhere underneath Croc is swimming around and could jump out at any moment and grab someone. I hope they go that way. I think if they go with Joker, it's just easy. I'm tired of seeing Joker personally. I think the idea of a suspenseful Jaws type movie with Batman always being worried about being near water and Croc just swimming quietly underneath is such a better idea than just going straight into Joker. Or I heard some people talk about Freeze is going to freeze the entire city. No. Go Killer Croc. I think that would be a way cooler villain to do for that series. Crystal in chat says, how are people thinking at the same time? I misspoke. Not talking about timeline, but sort of doing like an introductory villain and then Joker as the second movie, sort of like The Dark Knight was. Instead of, movie publishers and directors and stuff doing Batman with other villains and not just the Joker. That's why I'm so tired of Joker. It's the same formula every time. It's the same thing. Like, it's not always got to be Batman and Joker. He's got such a diverse and fun rogues gallery that if you just stick with Joker, it just gets boring, in my opinion. And honestly, this is going to piss some people off. I think that Two-Face is a better villain than Joker. And I will die on that hill because Joker and Batman are opposites. I get that. But Two-Face and Harvey Dent are a way better villain psychologically. Batman saves almost everybody. He could not save his best friend. And every time he fights Two-Face, he's reminded of that. And Two-Face usually reminds him of that. And I think that's just such a good villain that they've never done properly. It's so more interesting to have that pain in his heart every time he fights him, because this was his best friend and he's beating the daylights out of him now because he screwed up. He made that character. He didn't come in somewhere else. Two-Face was created because of Batman's failures. And I feel like that dynamic is so much better than just Joker being chaos and Batman being order. That's my hill. I know. Anyways, I think Killer Croc as a villain in the new Batman is such a good idea. I think it is way cooler than just doing another Joker story. That's me. All right. Let's jump into sponsorship, and then we're going to jump into the main event. Sponsor, as always, if you're new here, hi. If you can hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that share button, hit all that stuff. Actually, if you give me 1 second, I want to try something. I saw this on another YouTube channel, and I want to see if it works because this is really cool. And I'm going to test it out on my system because I don't know. I want to see it for myself. Lindsay in chat says he does have quite a list of villains. They don't explore enough of those. They don't. They never freaking do. And that's the problem. He's got one of the best rogues galleries in all of comics, and they just do nothing with them. All right, hang on 1 second. Let's pull this up here. Oh, I can't do it because I'm in the channel. All right. If you're watching this live, I'm going to say something, and I want you to tell me if the like button does something. All right. I want all you guys to smash that like button. Now, when I say that, the like button should do a little light thing. Hit the chat and tell me if that worked or not, because I heard that that's a thing that YouTube does now. When you say smash that like button, the little light goes around it to show you where the like button is. And that's really cool if it works. I can't tell because I'm signed in on my profile. Sponsor, sorry, sidetrack. Sponsor, as always. Nothing? Well, we're the shot. Sponsor today's podcast, as always, my beautiful, loving, amazing, talented wife. Seriously, I say it every week, but it is the truth. I met her many, many moons ago, and seriously, with the impact that Fan Expo had, she also I wouldn't be half of this stuff without my wife. And that's not just financial, that's motivation, that's encouragement, that's everything under the sun. I love her so much, and I would not be doing half of this, if not a quarter of this, without her in my life. So, hun, I love you so much. I'm so thankful to have you in my life. Love you. I think that's it. Let's jump into the main event, folks. So let's talk about Comic-Cons. It is the summer. It is Comic-Con season. As I said earlier, you can throw a rock and hit a Comic-Con. There's one every weekend, basically. But as you know, as I know, as many know, some people still don't know what this Comic-Con thing is. And some are still getting into the hobby of going to Comic-Cons and cosplaying and all that other stuff. All of these things are new to people and they don't know where to start because, like I said, you got a Comic-Con every other weekend. Well, what's the difference? What's this one? What's that one? It's really confusing. So we're going to break it down. I'm going to break down the 10 questions that you need to ask before going to a Comic-Con, before going to any Comic-Con that you've never been to before. Because yeah, like I said, we can't go to all of them. You don't know what's what or who's who or what. So let's break it down. I got 10 questions. I had a couple, but like I said, I threw them into ChatGPT and Google Gemini and all those things. And they gave me a 10 question layout. And it's pretty much the same. They just added one or two that I didn't already have. We're going to keep any examples I talk about, obviously, to the Southern Ontario area, because that's where I live. That's the cons I go to. So, if I don't have the exact, if this is a little different in a con across the sea or a con down south, I don't know. I haven't been to all of them. I've just gone to about, and this makes me almost hit the floor. I've gone to about 50 Comic-Cons in 15 years. Like, yeah, that's kind of nuts. I'm doing 9 this year alone. So yeah, I'm almost at about 50 different conventions. Well, 50 conventions, probably about 8 to 10 different ones in the area. But yeah, I'm doing about 50 cons since 2009. I need a life. Anyways, so let's talk about question 1. This is obviously the most important question that you need to ask. What is my primary interest? What are you interested in? Now, we're not going to go deep. This is a broad question. What are you interested in? Are you interested in comics? Are you interested in anime? Are you interested in gaming, cosplay, celebrities, any of those things? This is the biggest factor that is going to determine what convention you go to. Because if something's there that you want to go see or a topic, you're going to go, probably. And if it's not, you're not going to go. Prime example of this is the friends at Geeks & Co., JS and Jeff. They went to Anime North the first time this year. They are not anime fans. They, from what I could tell, were not giant fans of the con. They enjoyed the con as a con, but they're not anime fans, so they didn't really enjoy it as much as they would have liked. Now, I, on the other hand, am not an anime fan, but I understand and appreciate that art style and that type of entertainment, even though I don't watch it. So I do enjoy going to Anime North every year. So most of the cons around here have sort of a general nerd geek type of environment and type of interest base. So you will get a little bit of comics. You'll get a little bit of anime. You'll get a little bit of gaming, cosplay, celebrities. Funny story. Back when we were just talking about back in the day of going to Comic-Con in 2009, Fan Expo back in 2009, 2010, 2011 actually had 5 different topics that they covered, and they actually broke down the con into different sections. So there was a comic section, there was a gaming section, there was a sci-fi section, there was an anime section, there was a horror section. They actually broke the con down. So that is one of the things that I find very interesting now that 15 years into this hobby, it's all kind of molding together. We are seeing more at things like Fan Expo. There are the general big company booths, like I think not Nickelodeon, the TMNT guys and such last year had a big booth in the back, and different movie companies have big booths. But overall, you can kind of flow through Fan Expo and get a little bit of everything throughout. I think it was around 2013, 2014 was when they really started to weave everything together. It is interesting now to look back at Fan Expo 2009, 10, and even Crystal says 11, where horror had a really good big section with booths and displays and props and stuff that they don't really have as much anymore. I know I've received several surveys over the years asking my thoughts on the horror section of a con. Do I want it to continue? Is this something I visit? Is it something I want to buy from? And while I'm not someone who usually buys a ton of stuff at cons, I do think it is important to have even a little bit of it at a con. Cons like Niagara Falls Comic Con have a bigger horror section. The people who run that also run Frightmare in the Falls in October around Halloween, which is a primary horror convention. That is all horror, all the entire con. So it is important to think about these things before you go, because you might see something like a Frightmare in the Falls and think, well, it's going to be a lot of horror, but it might have some other things in it. No, that is a primarily horror. There is not much else but horror. Anime North, pretty much horror. There's a little bit, there's gaming in there, but primarily anime. So when you're thinking about going to a con, think about what your primary interests are, because that's what's going to dictate, for the most part, whether you go to the con or not. Number 2, what is the budget for the con? This is super important because this will pretty much determine a going or not going, because budget means tickets, travel, accommodation, merch, buying stuff while you're there, food, etc. This is super important because you can easily blow a ton of money at some of these cons. For example, I was talking about in the pre-show, this is my last year of going to Fan Expo and staying at a hotel by myself. For the past probably 5-6 years, I've primarily gone solo because I don't have anyone else that I really want to go with. I like having that personal space at the end of a con. My wife doesn't go anymore. She went even way before she met me. She had been going to cons for years. So the thought of going to a con now is boring to her. So I end up usually going solo. The benefit is I get time to myself at the end of a con and I get a whole room to myself. The problem is I spend about $1,000 to do that for 4 days. So positive, negative. Next year, however, I'm going to be splitting a room with some friends of mine who are volunteering at the con, because I just look at it now and go, I could be spending $500 and saving $500 to go into cosplay and 3D printers and stuff like that, or I could have 3 nights to myself. No, it's not worth it anymore. So yeah, you really got to think about that, because if you're traveling out of country, out of country for me, if I want to go to the States, that means I got to fly international, which means that's a budget problem. Accommodations, like I said, hotels, Airbnbs, they're all so expensive. I'm dropping out of Fan Expo entirely this year for that reason. Rob, you're not going? I heard the Geese & Co guys were saying you were at least going one day. Is that a no now? I get it. I completely get it. I remember, like, I got lucky this year, and I don't want to spoil it, but I'll say it now because it's past the fact. Someone from Fan Expo leaked, or at least told the hotel chains that have the deals on, that this is the bracket that we're going to use, these are the codes, etc. And someone found out about it and posted it online. I saw it and I instantly called the Intercontinental, which is right next door and attached to Fan Expo, and I was able to get a room before anyone else knew, or very few people knew. I got lucky with that. The year before, I got lucky with an Airbnb because there was a whole bunch of cancellations and I ended up getting that for almost free. Actually, I did get it for free because I got canceled so many times. Next year, I'm not going to be that lucky. So I need to break that budget because I need to have some extra cash. So you've got that. You've got accommodations. You've got travel. You've got tickets. Tickets are expensive. Every year for Fan Expo, I go as an ultimate pass holder, which means I'm spending $160. Thankfully, for at least my ticket, I think the others are the same. They haven't raised the prices on that pass and any tickets, I think, for many years at this point, when they probably could. So I will give Fan Expo the benefit of the doubt. They've not raised their prices in a while, and that's great because it gets a little nutty sometimes. Crystal in chat says, I'm so lucky to get my tickets as a birthday gift. Honestly, I'm the same way around Christmas time because they usually put either the tickets or the hotel on sale, or they put the tickets on sale around Christmas time. So I usually ask a couple family members, like, can I get some extra, can I get cash this year? Because that helps me pay for that. And I say, I know you all want me to unwrap a gift, but you know what? I need that way more than I need a toy or something like that. So yeah, tickets. Thankfully Fan Expo hasn't gone up. I can't quote for anyone else around here because other cons I'm volunteering, so I don't really check the prices, but tickets are tickets, and tickets, like most things, concerts and stuff, they're going to go up because you got to pay for things. You got to pay for the buildings. You got to pay for the guests. You got to pay for all the stuff you bring in, banners, chairs, all that stuff. So you as a con goer need to make sure that you have your budget planned out accordingly. Make sure to plan all your numbers accordingly, because it happens that you get there and there's an unexpected expense. You think you're going to spend $50 on food, you end up spending 100. So always make sure to bring extra money, plan accordingly, because that will be a big problem. Number 3, when can I take time off? Folks, cons are not a weekend thing anymore. If you think cons are just Saturday and Sunday, nuh-uh. Fan Expo, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Most cons happen on the weekend, but there might be a day or two before or a day or two after that you have to consider because, like we said on before, travel and stuff does play a factor. When I go to Fan Expo, I have that Thursday off. I will drive in first thing that day, and I will drive home that Sunday. When we first started going to cons, we didn't drive. So we would take the train in from Hamilton to Toronto. We would stay an extra night. We would actually leave Monday morning because the rush to get on the train at the end of the day on the Sunday was insane. And we'd always have luggage and all that stuff. It was just way easier to do it the other way. But that was when we were all working part-time and didn't really have, responsibilities, jobs, etc. So you really need to think about that because work, school, life, etc. all play a factor, and you got to make sure you have time. Like I said, I'm also doing 9 cons this year. I'm doing at least 20 days. I'm going to be at conventions, and I can only take so much time off work. I can only take so much time away from my wife downstairs. I'm also spending time up here. So all these things do take up your time. So make sure to plan accordingly. And don't let things like going to a convention or cosplaying or any of that stuff interfere with everyday stuff. Like I got to the point where I wanted to, spend as much time as I can building and going to it's not worth it, guys. Like if you don't get a cosplay done before the con, it's okay. If you miss one con, it's not the end of the world. We have this thing called social media and YouTube and stuff like that you can show off your work and go to things that you can. Don't push yourself to the point of, not being able to live your life outside the cons. It's not the end of the world. Crystal in chat says, when I guessed I missed out on a pay because I was FT, but with no vacation time. And that's, yeah, I totally understand that. It's crazy. It sucks that had to happen. Yeah, we need, you really got to plan it accordingly. When you guessed it, you really didn't. You can't really say no. So that's one time where you kind of have to say, well, I'm going to bite the bullet on this one. But yeah, that stuff you really got to pay attention to. Number 4, where am I willing to travel? This is an interesting conversation because Mr. Rob the Bad Guy and his fellow Geeks and Co. I don't know if he's included in this, but his fellow Geeks and Co. for sure. JS and Jeff were talking on their Geeks and Co. show on Thursdays on their YouTube page on Geeks and Co. About a con that happens around the same time. Actually, I believe it is the exact same weekend as Fan Expo down in Atlanta. And for cosplayers, this, it's called Dragon Con. It is pretty much the premier cosplay convention in the United States. And this is one that a lot of people who know me and know of this con say, you should go because you're going to have a blast. And I say, yes. However, I'm not willing to fly with my cosplay. Because if you're a cosplayer, you need to think about different things. Because luggage and people with the TSA and all those people sometimes are not very delicate with breakable items. And they are very good at ripping cases open and checking things for security reasons. I'm not saying I'm against them checking things, but sometimes, and I've seen it happen with several cosplayers, that things get damaged on the way through an airport and on an airplane. So I have kind of put that line in the sand, at least for the time being, that I'm not willing to go down to a United States convention with my cosplay. If I was driving, that's a different story. Problem is, I hate driving. I don't mind driving to Toronto or anywhere that, but if I'm going hours upon hours, no. I don't like driving to London, really. But it's still a fun con, and I do it. It's only twice a year, though. So, yeah, I don't think I'll be doing things like that, but you definitely need to think about that because that will open or narrow your choices. Because if you can only go to a local con because you have kids, budget, whatever, that's going to narrow your selection, especially where you live. Right now, I'm in Hamilton, which is sort of the center of everything. So I've got Niagara Falls, I got Toronto, I got London, I got Buffalo, I got all these things around me, and I've got Hamilton. If you're in the middle of nowhere in a small town that doesn't have a Comic-Con, you're going to have to go somewhere you're going to have to drive out of the city, out of the town to go to a Comic-Con. So these are things you need to pay attention to because with that, going back up, that means, well, you have to take time off. Are you driving out of the city and not able to get back because it's going to be late? These are all things that you have to consider. Imagine bringing my huge dresses. No, I can't imagine that because they would probably get damaged, which sucks. So yeah, you need to care about whether you're willing to travel or not. Number 5, what's the convention's reputation? Folks, there is this great social media thing called Facebook and Instagram, and to some points, Google. All of these things have reviews and comments on them. This is important because the conventions are obviously going to give out their best foot forward, their best face forward to show what they have that other cons just don't have and how great they are. Well, some cons kind of BS when it comes to stuff like this. I've run into it. I've known others to run into it, that cons sometimes just like to lie until they get your money, and then you get there and you realize you signed up for something that wasn't what it was. So the way to avoid this is to check Facebook. Check comments on their posts. See how many people are interacting with it. If it's a reputable con, you will see a lot of people commenting. Now, there will always be people being jerks and commenting stupid stuff. It happens with everything on the internet. Forget those. You will see, hopefully, people commenting positive things, excited about guests, excited about things that are happening at the con. Can't wait for the con to come around. All these things will show that there are people other than yourself going to the cons and are excited to go to the cons. And if you can scroll back far enough on their feeds and in their website, you might be able to see what they did last year. And you can see people commenting because they usually put a post out saying, thanks for coming to the con. The con was so great. We're so excited for next year. Look at those posts and see what the comments are on that, because there's usually going to be people saying, so happy I went. So cool that we went. It was so fun. Can't wait till next year. If there is, great. If nobody's commenting on any posts, well, that could mean one of two things. Either it's not a great con and people don't want to comment. Usually if it's that bad, they will. Or it's a new con and you're all trying to figure out whether you should go or not. Now, that's a question if you want to try that. Do you want to be the first person to go to one of these cons and try and build up a small con into making a new giant in the area? Possibly. That comes with a little bit of a question, though, on are you going to get everything that you think you're going to get? Is it going to be less than? There's a bunch of things you need to consider about that. So make sure to look at the reviews, look at the comments of posts on social media. Social media will tell you everything. I'm going to do a quick sidebar here. I know a lot of people who complain about social media and they say, there's negative comments, people are toxic and everything. Look, all that social media is showing the true person on the other side. Is there that anonymity where you can just say what you want? 100%. That sucks. But you know what? That also shows the type of people in this world that are willing to do that. So social media is not a bad thing. Social media is the most truthful thing you could probably do online. You will get positive feedback. You'll always get negative feedback, but that's just people being people. And those people, just ignore them. So enjoy the social media and use that to show your love and your hate. Unfortunately, if a con does bad, don't bash a con if it's, you just have a personal gripe. If there's, for non-valid reasons, don't bash a con. But if there's something that you have a concern about, critique them. Don't be a jerk about it, but critique it so others know for the future. Number 6, who are the guests and exhibitors? This is super important for a lot of people because a lot of people want to meet their favorite celebrities and they want to go buy stuff from their favorite exhibitors. I know a lot of people who go to Fan Expo because they got the heavy hitters when it comes to guests. Marissa Tomei is going to be there this year. Aunt May from the Spider-Man franchise. John Cleese from, God, I'm blanking on it. Come on. Life of Brian and Monty Python. Thank you. You've got all these great guests that are going to be there and people want to meet them. So it's good to go online and make sure to check what guests are going to be there because some have bigger ones than others. Thankfully, around this area, a lot of them, besides Expo, are kind of getting on the same level when it comes to, I would say, value guests. If that's not the right word. I can't explain it, but the Fan Expo's got the high priority guests. They've got the big ones. Then you've got I would say Niagara Falls, probably your next biggest one. They've got some big ones, but not a ton. Hamilton, London, etc. B to C level. I would even say B to C level guests. It really depends on what you're looking for. For example, I don't give a crap about many A-list celebrities. And it's not that I don't like them. I love them. But there are more B and C-list celebrities that I care about. I am super excited to finally say hi to the Soup Nazi, Larry Thomas, at Fan Expo this year. I'm excited to have when Jason David Frank, rest in peace, was at Fan Expo and Hamilton Comic Con. I was in love. I was so excited to meet him. I'm a big wrestling fan, so wrestlers and stuff were always exciting to meet them because I grew up watching them. It's really looking at who you want to see. And same with exhibitors. There are exhibitors at certain cons that aren't at other ones, and they're usually showcased on social media. And Rob, bingo, knocked it out of the park. Easier to talk to and connect with that tier of people too. 100%. There are a lot of mainstream guests, which, I can't, from a convention standpoint, I can't blame, where you're kind of being pushed through quickly because there's so many people lined up trying to meet this person that they can't have each guest sit and talk. For example, I always mention Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger from the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Amazing guest. Love having him at cons. However, he wants to talk for about 50 minutes with every single person who walks up to his table, which is a problem when you've got 500 people wanting to meet him. So there are some that want to talk more than others, but with the main big guests, they usually just want to get them through, not because they don't want to give you an experience, but because we have to get through these many people in this amount of time. I always remember the story or the experience when I met Robert Englund. It was literally, they were walking him out the door, and there's a few of us volunteers who just wanted to get our shirt signed. And I knew, my name's Michael Myers, I had to meet Freddie. So I walked up and I talked to him and I was like, hey, can you sign my shirt? He said, yeah. And he's like, well, how about I sign we had a little book that we had. I said, he's like, can I sign your book instead? I said, sure. And he said, what's your name? I said, Michael Myers. Said, oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. He said, where are you from? I said, I'm from Hamilton, Ontario. He goes, oh, I shot a movie in Hamilton, and just started going on. And his handler's just like, will you shut up, Robert? Please, your car is here. We have to go. So yeah, that does happen sometimes. But going back to the exhibitors, there are things at certain cons that you can't see at other cons. Prime example, London Comic Con. There are booths at London Comic Con that I have not seen at any other con, because that is a fairly local convention. That's one of the highlights of that con. There's also, going back to the one we keep talking about, Fan Expo Canada, the biggest one. They have the big booths. They have 2 giant 20-foot tall t-shirt towers. That's one of the perks of that one. So seeing what guests are going to be there, seeing what other exhibitors are going to be there is going to play a factor if there's things you want to buy or if there's people you want to meet. Number 7, what are the convention activities and events? Panels, workshops, contests, everything like that is important, because we got to do things when we get there. We can't just walk around the floor for hours upon hours upon hours. It gets kind of boring after a while. So there's things you want to do. Do you want to, go to a panel of your favorite celebrity? Do you want to go to a workshop? Because they have cosplay workshops where cosplayers will come in and they will sit down and they will explain to you how they do things. I signed up to do a couple panels this year at Fan Expo. Still don't know if I'm going to do them. I hope I do. I've never done a panel before, but I'm super excited if I get to. We're going to talk all about different versions of cosplay. Lindsay in chat hosted a panel. Her and her husband Gavin, they did a Lord of the Rings panel last year, and I heard it was incredible. There was a con here in Hamilton many, many moons ago. It's no longer here. And they were very good at doing a lot of hands-on workshops. And I wish some other con took that and ran with it, because it was so fun. The guests, or whoever was running the con, was able to get a budget from the convention to help pay for supplies. And when you went to the panel, you were actually able to build something or do something physically instead of just sitting in a chair. I wish a con would take this and run with it, because it was such a good thing for cosplayers, for makeup artists. When I went to the con, I went specifically because I really wanted to start doing makeup. Failed at that, never really done it since. But the person who was doing it did a if I got stabbed in the arm, and did a puncture hole with jelly and fake blood and all that stuff. It was so cool. And I would love to see Fan Expo or other conventions do stuff like that, because doing it hands-on and building a foam prop or something like that is a great idea. Thank you. Collaborated cosplay. Yes, Not Possible is doing something like that, a build type game. Yes, she mentioned that at the Geeks and Co this week or last week about it. And I think that's really cool. I'm actually really excited. I'm going to be going to London this year, and I hope I remember to check that out because I would love to see what she's going to do because she's an incredible cosplayer and I want to see what she has. I think it's a time thing. Like they have to, I think I read something where it's got to be, they have to build something in a certain amount of time. And I think that's a really cool idea. But yeah, panels, workshops, contests, make sure to check their programs of each convention because each convention will put out a program at some point, Fan Expo, hopefully not 2 days before the bloody con, that will tell you what's going to be happening each day so you know what day to go. Number 8, what is the expected crowd size? Wow, does this matter more to me now than it did back in the day? Back in the day, I didn't care how many people were going to be there. I didn't care if there was 10,000 people or if there was 10 people. I was going there because I was going to enjoy the con. Now, I don't want to deal with crowds. I will because I'm a cosplayer and I know Saturday is the big day at Fan Expo and I'm going to be in full bloody dread armor. I know that's going to be a thing, but if you're not good with crowds, avoid big conventions. I've told so many people who've never done Fan Expo before and they want to try it, don't go Friday. Don't go Saturday. Most people say don't go Saturday. I've done this long enough. Don't go Friday either. It's because it's just as bad at this point. Part of the reason I've not attended Fan Expo or Toronto Comic Con yet is fear of the costume size and those attendance numbers. And collaborative cosplay, if you don't know, is a giant Groot costume, which is dope, but it's a giant Groot costume that takes up a lot of space. And when you have people who are new to conventions who don't understand that the guy in the Groot costume can only see so far and isn't easily mobile, they sometimes walk by and elbows are thrown and shoulders are thrown and little kids running around. If you're not good with that, do not go on Saturday. I can say Saturday, any con. If you don't like crowds, don't go to cons on Saturday. Pick a Sunday. And with Fan Expo specifically, do a Thursday or a Sunday because Friday is becoming just as bad as Saturday. But yeah, it really matters now, especially to me. I know there are people who just don't do well in crowds. If you're not one of those people, or if you are one of those people, please avoid it. Please don't put yourself through that. There is no con. There is no guest. There is nothing worth your time to have a giant anxiety attack because you are shoulder to shoulder in a crowd. Side note, if you're lining up to meet a celebrity, know that you are probably going to be pushed right next to the person in front of you and behind you, and the lines are going to be like a snake, and you're probably going to be side to side. If you don't do well in confined spaces, don't do it. Believe me, I've seen too many people have anxiety attacks and pass out. It's not worth it. Believe me. And as Lindsay said, make friends real quick. And that's word for word what I say when I'm volunteering and I tell people we got to crush the lines. You're going to make friends real quick. Say hi to the person in front of you. Say hi to the person behind you. You're all in this together. Number 9, what is the overall atmosphere and vibe of the convention, folks? This is bigger than you might think because there are some that are way more family friendly than others. There are cons, for example, like Frightmare, which is, I would say, a more adult-oriented con. Now, there are kids who love horror. Nothing against that. However, there are some imagery in horror movies, in horror media, that are more adult-oriented. Sexual things, graphic things that you might be okay showing them certain movies at home. When you're in the middle of a convention, you can't really avoid it. There is one specific booth, and I cannot remember the name of it because that's not really my thing, but there is a booth that has a giant cutout or has a big wooden thing with a demon painted on it with big boobs and nothing down there. And you could put your head in it, I believe. And it is like, I'm thinking if I brought a teen here, that would be a questionable thing that I would probably have to answer many questions that I wouldn't want to talk about on the drive home. So look into what is going to be there. Usually, like from the questions, from the points above, the activities, the events, the exhibitors, all these things will give you a good idea of what the convention is about. Most of them are fairly family friendly. They're wanting to get as many people to come to the con as possible. There are, however, like I said, some that aren't. So make sure to do your research beforehand. And ending this off, let's backtrack first. Let's do 1 to 9 first, and then we'll do the 10th one. So number 1, what are your primary interests? Make sure to look at what the con is about. Most of them are a lot of different things. Some are niche specific. Number 2, what is the budget for the convention? Make sure to budget properly. Make sure to add a little extra to the end because you might need that later. Number 3, when take time off. Cons aren't always Saturday and Sunday anymore. If you need to do a Thursday or a Friday to meet a certain guest or something, book accordingly. Number 4, where am I willing to travel? You willing to travel down south, down to international? Are you willing to just stay up here? Are you willing to drive 4 blocks, 50 blocks? You need to plan that stuff out accordingly. Number 5, what's the convention's reputation? Check online reviews, check comment sections on posts. That will give you a good idea of what people think of the con. Number 6, who are the guest exhibitors? You need to know these things because maybe you want to meet certain people, maybe you want to buy certain things. Check on their websites, check in their pamphlets and their programs. That will tell you what's going to be there. What's the convention activities? Panels, workshops, contests, all these things. You need stuff to do at a con. You need to know if it's worth your time going. Otherwise, you're just walking around all day. Number 8, what is the expected crowd size? If you don't do well in big crowds, don't go on Saturdays, and Fan Expo, don't go on Fridays. Your first and last day are usually your best days if you want a little bit of air. Number 9, what's the overall atmosphere and vibe of the convention? Is it family friendly? Is it adult oriented? Most are family friendly, but check just to make sure. And number 10, what kind of experience are you looking for? Are you looking for casual browsing? Are you looking for intense collecting? Are you looking for a cosplay showcase? This is important because, especially the intense collecting, there are conventions out there that are specifically based on collecting. Shoe conventions are happening now. Card collecting is going up, and everybody's collecting something at this point. And there are specific cons that are dedicated to these things. So the cons that I go to, Fan Expo, London, Hamilton, Toronto, Niagara Falls, they're mostly casual browsing, the general ones that you can think of when it comes to Comic-Con. But there are other ones, South being San Diego Comic-Con being one of them, where it's a little more intense. There are people that are going to be going there specifically to buy exclusives. So there are rushes to certain booths. There are rushes to certain halls because there are certain things that are happening at certain times. So that's a little more of an intense con. Is it a cosplay showcase? Is this a con like Anime North where it is very heavily cosplay showcased? And you can see cosplays from almost any genre walking around. There's a lot of cosplay panels, stuff like that. So again, same with the other stuff. Check the website, check the reviews, try and find old reviews and old clips of the con. YouTube, that's another thing. Go on this YouTube after you're done this. Go and check out what different people say about it. Search whatever the con is, review, or my day at whatever the review, whatever the con. There's a lot of people that will go around with a selfie stick or whatever and videotape the conventions. And then you can watch it and you can get an idea as if you were there what these people experienced. So there's many, many ways. Searching hashtags to filter sometimes as well. 100%. Hashtags do work sometimes. They're hit and miss on some things too. I kind of spam them sometimes when it comes to convention stuff. So it's definitely check them out there. They might find something there too. But like everything else, check the websites, check reviews, check previous reviews. That'll give you an idea. Folks, we're at the 59-minute mark. Thank you all for tuning in. If you can hit that like button, smash that like button. Did it work? Did it work? Suppose if you say smash the like button, the little thing kicks in. Smash the like button. I don't think it worked. Anyways, if you can, that'd be greatly appreciated. Maybe later. Maybe if I watch it later, I'll do that. Anyways, thank you so much for tuning in. Next week, we're going to have a guest. Next week, I'm not going to be by myself. Next week, our good buddy, the Freakish Workshop, will be on here with me. And we have a really fun episode planned. What we're going to do is I threw out something to him, and he actually came up with this idea. And I said, yes, we're going to do it. We're going to go through our top 10 games that need a remaster or a remake. If you're a gamer right now, the world is flooded with remakes and remasters of old games. There are some, however, that due to many different things, licensing, copywriting, etc., that we do not have and may never have. We're going to talk about that tonight or next week, next Monday. And then, for those who are still here, the week after is the first week of August, and there are 4 weeks in August, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong, but let me triple check. One more time. I think I've got my calendar pulled up here, folks. Talk amongst yourselves. So there are 3 weeks in August, because the last week of August is the 26th. That will be my Fan Expo review. But the first 3 weeks, the 5th, the 12th, and the 19th. When I first started this channel, I did 90s month. And we're going to bring that back. Next month, before Fan Expo, is going to be 90s month. We're going to be going through 90s video game movies, 90s comic book movies, and the 90s Batman movies. One a week. We're going to go through my thoughts on each one of them. We are pulling in the 89 Batman into the 90s. It's not just going to be Returns Forever and Batman Robin. So the first week will be comic book movies. The next one will be video game movies. And then we're going to do the Batman movies. So folks, if you can, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that sub button, whatever you want to do. Show it to your friends. It means a lot. Have yourselves a good week. Have yourselves a good time. This week, we're going to be posting a lot about Judge Dredd. I'm working real hard on it. A lot of it is primed behind that thing. And I'm going to have some more stuff showcase soon. Have yourselves a great week. I love you all. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next week. Hey, thanks for watching Monday Night Nerd. If you enjoyed this content, please hit the subscribe button, like this content, and follow on social media for even more nerdy fun. See you soon.